And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, as always, is my co-host Laraib. As we are super excited to get into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. 8 teams, 4 games, 1 goal. Let's go, Laraib. We're just gonna be breaking down these 4 games today. Laraib, anything you want to say before we head into these
No,
matchups?
let's just hop right in, Lewis. Starting off on Saturday, we have the Houston Texans going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. The Ravens favored by 9 points at home. Um, you know, Ravens coming off a bye, and the whole story about this game, Lewis, has been Lamar Jackson and his performances he's had in the playoffs. Now, the last time he won a playoff game, Lewis, was in 2020 against the Tennessee Titans. Now it's been 4 years later, and this is the best Ravens team that we've seen so far with him at quarterback. And I think they have a really good shot here at home. Now, if you look at the Texans game from last week, we saw Flacco have 300 yards throwing the ball. They only had 56 rushing yards. And I understand, they kind of had to throw to get back in that game. But what really stood out to me, Lewis, in this one was the top two receivers for the Cleveland Browns. Now we know David Njoku was Joe Flacco's favorite target while his time was over there, but number two in receiving yards was Harrison Bryant. It really looked like what this Browns team wanted to do, Lewis, was exploit that middle of the defense for the Texans. We know they have some really good guys on the outside and this and over the top, and Jalen Petrie, Steven Jackson or Steven Jenkins, Devin Sting or Derek Stingley, just a lot of good guys in the secondary. But in the middle, besides Blake Cashman, they really don't have that guy to really patrol the middle of the field. Our guy, Blake Cashman. And so I really think even if Mark Andrews does not play in this game, which he's questionable for, which is really interesting to see after the injury that he had, even if he doesn't play, I expect a huge game out of Isaiah Likely and those tight ends over there across the middle of the field to really exploit this Texans defense. And I think Lamar Jackson puts to bed to this narrative that he can't perform in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity for the Ravens to make their mark on this year's postseason because, there is a thing when you win that first upset, and we both picked the Texans, but, the books had it as Browns favored in that first wild card game. When you win that game, you win it huge, you win at home, you're feeling yourself. This one's for Houston, this is the new regime. And then that one seed is just lurking, waiting for you on the other end. And you go to their building, and I've seen it time and time again, and they just get worked. Prime example last season, the New York Giants, huge upset. They beat the Vikings at home. It was such a good story. And then they go on the road, and they're waiting for them as the Philadelphia Eagles, who dominate them. Now, last time we saw these teams play was in week 1. So one of these teams' seasons is going to end just like how it began. And I want to look at this from the Houston offense side, Laura, because CJ Stroud is so good at, just being a game discipline. He doesn't let the moment get to him. He reads through his progressions, he sees the field, and he just tries to make the right play. And that's resulted in him not making a lot of mistakes, but sometimes it results in him being a little too conservative. And this Ravens defense is going to force you to take the conservative route. They do not get beat deep. They are last in the NFL and big times plays against. They force you to go deep. And I wouldn't even say it's a bend don't break defense like we saw from the Lions against the Rams the other week. This defense, they're just so active in the middle of the field, stopping the run, which the Texans, they had a pretty good rushing performance against the Browns last week. I don't think that's going to happen again against this Ravens defense, which is strong in the interior versus the Browns defense, which is stronger on the outside, on the edges, and in the backfield and the defensive secondary. So this is a totally different matchup going on the road to Baltimore. This just feels like it's too much of a task for Bobby Slowick, CJ Stroud, and this Texans offense for a Ravens team that's just been getting healthy, waiting at home. I mean, I really like this Texans team. I like what they've accomplished this season, but I just cannot see them overcoming the Ravens. And like you mentioned, on both sides of the ball in this ball game, Larab.
Yeah, it's going to be a Herculean effort by CJ Stroud. But if there's anybody we believe in out of all the underdogs this week, besides Patrick Mahomes, it has to be CJ Stroud. Like you mentioned, just his ability to sometimes, hold on to the ball for maybe a second too long, but he will get you those plays that you need to stay in close games. And that's why I think this stays a one possession game, Lewis, against his Ravens defense. It's first in points, first in sacks, and first in takeaways. I think if CJ Stroud plays a clean game, they have a shot. But I just think this Ravens defense is playing on a historic level. And Lamar Jackson, after being fully healthy this year on an MVP run, I think they have something to prove. So I'm going to take the Ravens 27-20 at home.
Yeah, Laraib, I agree with you. I just feel like both teams feel like they're on different paths. The Texans, you have the rookie coach, you have the rookie quarterback, and they're just playing free. They have nothing to lose. If they lose this game, all of Houston's going to be happy with their progress. And maybe you can make an argument that all the pressure is on Baltimore. And are they going to feel that pressure? I feel like in this stage of Lamar Jackson's career, he's past these hiccups that he's had earlier in the postseason. He knows what his game is. He's familiar with this team, with this system. John Harbaugh knows his guys. I feel like they're going to come into this game well prepared, have the right mindset, and they're going to take care of business. And I think they won pretty big here, Rob. I'm going to go Ravens 34 to Texans 16, and a pretty sizable route here for Baltimore to get their postseason started. But let's go ahead and move on to our next game of the docket, Larab. We are going to have a NFC matchup. You have the Green Bay Packers traveling to San Francisco to face the 49ers. This game will be at 7:15 kickoff. 49ers favored by 9.5 on Saturday, Larab. We saw the Packers last week, 7.5-point underdogs, go into Dallas and pull off an upset where, honestly, if you were to tell me the Packers were favored by 7.5 and I didn't know football, I would have told you that would have been the right line. But, they just seemed like the more dominant team. It didn't feel like a fluke when it was happening on the field. They just went down, marched down. Is there any shot that the Packers can replicate that performance in San Francisco, Larab?
I think there is, and I project this to be a very close game, if I'm being quite honest. Jordan Love in his last nine starts, here's a big number: 21 touchdowns, only one interception. In the game that we saw, Aaron Jones looks like he was completely healthy, and the way the offensive line played against one of the better defenses in the entire league was really, really, really good, Lewis. You talk about a guy, Marco Parsons, who got completely shut down. You talk about Jordan Love and all his off-platform throws, all his ability to extend the plays. And if that offensive line can play how they played against the Dallas Cowboys, they have a good shot in this game. If you can slow down Chase Young, who hasn't been productive in the last couple of seasons, even when he's came to the 49ers, I really haven't seen him, jump off the page. Nick Bosa, we've seen him been bottled up a couple of times. And so if they're able to slow down this pass rush for this 49ers team, they can be had in the secondary. That we've seen them have their ups and downs. And if it's going to be guys like Romeo Doubs, streaking down the field, you have the confidence of Jordan Love to be able to hit him, right? You have the confidence in him to hit rookies like Jaden Reed. It's going to be a really fun game, but I think overall the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan and how much he is going to be able to he already knows Matt LaFleur coming from his coaching tree. So somebody he knows, what type of offensive minds he might want to play in this one. And then, of course, the Packers defense, he looked good against Dak Prescott, but this is a completely different type of offense with the 49ers, who are able to run the ball effectively, right? There's not Tony Pollard back there. It's Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the NFL, along with a very good, backup in Elijah Mitchell. And so I think this is going to be a close game, but the 49ers pull it out.
Yeah, I believe you hinted at what I think the biggest matchup in this game is going to be, Laura. It's the rushing attacks of both teams. And what did we see last week with Green Bay? Once they established that run when they had a lead, which is key, then they were able to go downhill. Cowboys were not prepared for it, and they just slaughtered the Cowboys. The 49ers run defense and run attack is significantly better than what the Cowboys had last week. And you mentioned it with Christian McCaffrey, leading rusher in the entire NFL. That is a point of emphasis for the 49ers. And even, he had the calf strain going into last week. He should be fully healthy for this game. But Elijah Mitchell looked pretty impressive as well last week. So they have a lot that they could throw at him. And if you remember the last time these two teams played in the playoffs, they even used Deebo Samuel a lot in the rushing game, who picked up a key first down to seal that game for the 49ers. So I just feel like, and the biggest thing in this matchup is what team can run the ball more effectively. And I know the Packers put up a really good rushing attack last week, but I know what I've seen all season long from this 49ers team and how effective that they can be. I feel like this game is honestly going to be decided by whichever team can get that first points on the board and put pressure on the other team's passing attack. Because we know how when Kyle Shanahan is, trailing in games, how he struggles to find his footing and come back in games. A historically bad record when trailing entering the fourth quarter. But he does such a good job of establishing early leads and playing that type of football. So it's going to be a huge task for Matt LaFleur and this Packers offense to establish that lead, to establish their physical presence in San Francisco. But I just believe it's too tall of a task for this Packers team to put up such a giant first quarter effort the same way they did back-to-back weeks on the road. The 49ers have been waiting, they're prepared, and they're just something about these teams coming off a bye in the first round that we forget now that we only have one team coming off a bye. That's just so huge. And you get to see your opponent, you get to game plan for that extra week, get guys healthy, get guys you won't even expect to be healthy back. So I think the 49ers, same thing with what's said about the Texans for the Packers. They're kind of happy to be here. They're not playing with expectation. They're just, youngest team in the NFL. They're just saying, hey, let's go out there and see what we can do. We don't know any better. We haven't seen all those former Packer flameouts against the 49ers from the past. We're just here to put on a good performance and see what we can do. But I believe their tail ends here. I'm going to go with the 49ers in this game. I think they start hot. I think they finish hot. I'm going to go 49ers 30 to Packers 23.
And I agree with you, Lewis. I think, this Packers team, it looks like they've found their, cornerstone quarterback here in Jordan Love. And they're just going to be going out there playing for fun. But I think they keep this one real close. Give me the 49ers 27-23 as both the Texans and the Packers cover on Saturday.
All right, Laraib. Now we move over to the Sunday slate of games. 2 games here on Sunday starting at 2 p.m. kickoff. Okay, NFL. Weird. At least there's no more Peacock games because that was awful. We have Tampa Bay traveling to Detroit to face the Lions. 2 teams that maybe before the season we wouldn't have expected to be in this position, but here we are. One of these 2 teams will be in the NFC Championship, Laraib, which is pretty remarkable from where these teams have come for this season. But focusing on this game, Detroit favored by 6.5 at home. 2 straight home games for the Lions. Who would have thunk it? And Baker Mayfield is playing in his second divisional round game, in which you can argue if he didn't get injured in that first game against the Chiefs, maybe they pull off the upset in that game. So, first glance, Laraib, we saw how dominant that Tampa offense looked against the Eagles, who you can argue quit, who can argue that defense was pretty rough, but the Bucks did look impressive. Do you expect a similar type of performance in Detroit?
Well, they're going to try to replicate that success in this game, but I don't think so. We saw from this Lions team, we talked about it in our breakdown from Tuesday, bend, don't break. Now, the Rams team with Matthew Stafford coming into town, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, that's a top 5 trio in the league. Now, this is a step down from that. Maybe not as great of a step as most people think, but Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans are just not, they're going to have to put up a better performance than they did last week. Now, those names sound really good, but Mike Evans getting really old, Chris Godwin getting extremely old, and we know the Baker Mayfield cycle. Now, everyone feels great for him after that victory against the Vikings.
We're bringing that back? Come on.
But now the cycle continues, right? Mob of the dead, the cycle continues. I think Baker Mayfield is going to march into Detroit. And we saw, that crowd, Lewis, had an effect on that game, right? That raucous crowd in Detroit was,
raucous.
All kinds of different miscommunications for the Rams. I think this is going to be a tall order for the Buccaneers. And I think Detroit, the offense looked really hot in the first half, but kind of slowed down. But I think Ben Johnson, he's going to have something for that Buccaneers blitz. He's going to have something dialed up for that. And this Lions team with a lot of playmakers, they're going to be a lot better than what the Buccaneers just faced.
Yeah, so outside of the Eagles game, in which you can argue the Eagles were playing like the worst team in the NFL, the last 2 games to end the year for this Tampa team, which it was a win or miss the playoffs type of situations, they put up 13 points against the Saints at home and then put up 9 points at Carolina in their final game of the year, in which they did not look impressive. And I just feel like maybe playing Philadelphia just kind of cleanses the soul, gets your offense back on track. And the biggest X factor for me in this game is actually a guy you mentioned. It is Mike Evans, because this offense, I believe, a lot of the touchdowns they had against Philadelphia were just bad missed tackles, things that I feel like Detroit is not going to let happen. But it's so like Mike Evans is such a game changer in the sense that if he gets blanketed, which he can, and we've seen it so many times before, they're just going to snuff out and not be a competitive offense that day. But if he gets going, he is such a field flipper in the sense that he could take a 50-yard bomb at any point in the game and completely flip the game on its side. So in this game on a turf field in Detroit, I feel like Mike Evans will have opportunities in this game to make big plays. Now, is he going to take advantage of that? That will be TBD. That's what we play the games for. But that is a name I am looking out for in this matchup because Detroit doesn't have a lockdown corner like most teams do, which really kind of threatens Mike Evans in a lot of matchups. So will he take advantage of those matchups? We know Aaron Glenn likes to blitz a lot. He likes to go, zero man and just test those receivers. And you saw Puka Nacua burn them a lot in that game last week. So is it sustainable to let that happen again? I feel like because of the other lack of weapons from Tampa's side, Godwin and those guys, they looked really good last week, but we haven't seen them look that good all season long. And then the rushing attack, I respect Rachaad White more than most people. You know me. But I just feel like that won't be as replicable as well. And I feel like, Hutchinson and those guys will be able to get a good pass rush. So ultimately, it comes down to, can Baker and Evans connect on those deep balls to really flip this game? I think they will. I think they will connect on some of these deep balls. So then, it ultimately comes down to how does Detroit answer? How are they able to respond? And, we'll see. I think it's going to be a really, really good game, Laraib.
I agree with you. That's just going to be maybe the second most fun game to watch this weekend. But I think the Detroit Lions, that defense, they got some heavy hitters back there, especially with CJ Gardner-Johnson back. And if he starts laying the boom on Mike Evans, or he comes off on one of those safety blitzes and he gets a good crack at Baker Mayfield in one of those ribs, this game could turn ugly really fast. A lot of questions about Kirby Joseph, the cornerback for the
Yeah.
Lions, who's been taking players out left and right. Maybe we see one of those big plays happen in this game.
Okay. Okay.
I think the Lions at home, this is the team of destiny, Lewis. The team of destiny. They already defeated their arch nemesis in Matthew Stafford last week, and now Baker Mayfield coming in, former number one overall pick, been up and down his whole career, and the spot is too big for him here as Jared Goff, and who has something to prove, takes the Lions to the NFC Championship game as they rout the Bucs 30-24.
That doesn't sound like much of a route to me, but all right.
Late score by Mike Evans makes it a 6-point game.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I agree with you. I do like the Lions in this game purely because I think they will outscore this Tampa team. And when they outscore them, Tampa can't really run the ball that effectively. Respect for Rachaad White. And I just feel like the pass rush will get home for this Lions team and Aaron Glenn. So, I just feel like this Tampa defense, they're good against the run, but at least on the interior, I believe that guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and even in like Amon-Ra St. Brown will be able to work the outside of the field, get the first downs necessary. And as long as Jared Goff doesn't make mistakes, which he hasn't so far this season, and at home, different quarterback at home, I feel like he will play a successful brand of football and they're going to win this game. So I'm going to go Lions 35 to Tampa 28. This will be a fun, competitive game that the Lions do end up covering barely, in my opinion, Laura. But let's go ahead and move on to our final game of the weekend and what you alluded to, the best game of the weekend, the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Buffalo to face the Bills. Both teams 11-6. Buffalo favored slightly at home by 2.5 points. Laura, I'll start with you. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, 3-3 in their career facing each other. But two of those games that Mahomes has beat Josh Allen have been in the playoffs. But both of those games were in Kansas City. Now it's Josh Allen's turn to host the playoff game in Buffalo. Do you see this matchup favoring Josh Allen this time around?
I sure do. And Patrick Mahomes' first game on the road in his playoff career, I think this is going to be a tall order for the superhuman Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know you're going to pull out all the receipts. This is how good he's been. Rashi Rice is going to come back. Travis Kelce is him. Oh, Isaiah Pacheco runs angry. Even with all the mounting injuries for this Bills team on defense, Lewis, I think Josh Allen played a stellar game last week against, the Steelers, albeit a really bad team. 0 turnovers for him. If he plays mistake-free football in this game, Lewis, mark my words, they will win by a million against this Kansas City Chiefs team, who, got to shut down the Miami Dolphins last week, and Tyreek Hill and someone who were there fired up to play. But this is not the Miami Dolphins who play in 70-degree weather all year long. This is the Buffalo Bills who've been fighting for their playoff lives, Lewis, since the middle of the season. And now they're at home in a really good spot against Patrick Mahomes. This is the worst he's looked in his entire career. I think this is a great opportunity for this Bills team to step up at home in their home stadium at Orchard Park. James Cook, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Josh Allen will control this game and win against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Is Gabe Davis playing? He's questionable. Okay, he didn't play
He
last
will
week.
play to
Okay,
face
okay.
Patrick Mahomes.
Are you finished? Are you finished?
Yeah.
So you're betting against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Let me give you some stats, Laraib. In Patrick Mahomes' career in the playoffs, he's played 15 games. He is 12-3 in said games. 2 of those games being the Super Bowl. 2 of those games being overtime losses. And you expect him, because he's on the road, to play any differently. That's absurd. Mahomes this season, and you could argue, a lot of people have, that this offense seems broken. It seems like it's in shambles. It seems yada, 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 yada. And I will concede that this offense has taken a step back from what it's been in years past. But does that make the Chiefs any less of a team when they have the second overall defense in the entire NFL? When this same defense just held the Miami Dolphins to 7 points, the same defense that hasn't given up over 30 points in over 2 seasons. The only game that they did allow over 30 points was the Super Bowl last year, in which they obviously won. Excuse me. In which they obviously won that contest. So I believe that you were underrating this Chiefs team because they don't look that good, when really what you've seen from them is they've realized their strengths the past few weeks. They're a running team, a mistake-free football team that relies on the defense, that, maybe in the red zone, they can settle for more field goals. They're more conservative on offense, as they know their defense will get the job done. And you are betting on a man in Josh Allen, who has been known to make those key mistakes and key moments at the end of games. And I will not forget how that game went last season when the Bengals came to town and he could not get out of his own way, and that game spiraled out of control quickly. I think this will be a low-scoring game, Laraib. I think this game will be, come down to the wire. It'll be down to the final few possessions. And I just trust Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in this spot. I've seen it time and time again. This duo come through time and time again. This is their first road playoff game, but this is not their first road game. This isn't their first cold weather game. This is the Kansas City Chiefs, which I am putting my flag down. They're going to go into Buffalo, kick their feet up, turn on the TV, ask the Bills to get them a soda from the fridge, and they're going to win this game. No, not handily. They're going to win this game close. 23-21. Butker sends them home.
And I completely disagree. You talk about this Chiefs defense, Lewis. You bring up, we stopped Miami Dolphins. Congratulations, you slowed down one of the most overrated offenses this year in the NFL and one of the most overrated teams. Then you go back to the regular season. Oh, wow. They held Easton Stick to 12 points.
Okay, throw that game out.
They held Jake Browning to 17 points.
That's safe.
They held Aiden O'Connell to 14 points.
Okay,
They
and your
held
point?
they held Bailey Zappi to 17 points. This
Impressive.
is not Bailey Zappi. This is not Easton Stick. This is Josh Mother effing Allen. And I'm
Who they
telling
held to
you,
20 points.
they got something to and what was the result of that game?
Okay, I'm just
Just
saying.
curious. Your superhuman Patrick Mahomes. What did he do in that game?
Okay, I'm just
Romo?
saying. If there wasn't an offsides penalty,
Who knows what could have happened in that
who
game?
knows?
But
Who
I know
knows?
what did happen in that game. The Buffalo Bills defense, who you didn't give any credit to this, for holding them for holding them to 17 points. I think this is the year Patrick Mahomes, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL currently, who's been a reigning terror on this AFC. I think Josh Allen finally gets one on him this year and sends this Bills team to the AFC Championship. I'm gonna go 24-21 late Tyler Bass field goal, who missed twice last week, redeems himself in this one against the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, Laraib, well, that's going to do it. Only 4 games to go over. We hit them pretty hard, though. Really cool stuff. Can't wait to watch these games this weekend. And then only 2 games remain for the championship round. And then we're off to the Super Bowl in Vegas, which we will probably be watching at home. But who knows? If y'all want to send us some tickets, we won't decline them. But Laraib, anything you want to say before we head out from this episode?
I think that's the First of All podcast signing off.
Peace.